Hi, Spencer. Welcome to the show.
Greetings, John. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. I was looking at your books that you have on Amazon. You seem to have written two books, but it's part of a series. Looks very interesting. I like fantasy a lot. Before we get to your books, though, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are? You know, where you're from and how you got to the point where you decided to write books of this nature.
Well, I'm a guy who lives over in Connecticut. I and how I started my writing journey was simply just by reading. Before I ever put pen to paper, I put eyes to pages. I read a lot growing up, and it just inspired me to just want to create my own world like all the authors that I read.
Right. Are you into like video games and that sort of thing as well?
Not as much as reading, but I do like I'm more like just video games that have just big sweeping stories. I love a good story.
Yeah, they do. I love a story too. So now let's get to your book. Or you have two books right now. Well, which one you want to talk about first?
Let's start with book one of the series, Everything Under the Sun. It actually, interestingly enough, it started off as an idea for a board game. I was in high school. I had a extracurricular class, video game design, and we had a project where they just wanted us to create a board game, and I just had a few characters sitting in a document that I created, and they were like, "Hey, pick me, I want to be part of this board game." And so I just started working with them and letting them talk me through the idea, and from those characters the astral kingdoms were born.
Okay, Astral Kingdoms. So how many kingdoms are there within the world that you've created?
The entire world of Keylis, that's the planet that I'm writing on. It's a massive planet, larger than Earth. There are so many different kingdoms. I'm currently focusing on just one continent, Celestira. And on Celestira, there are three kingdoms. There's Sun's Reach, Moonwatch, and the Eclipse.
Wow. You know what I really like about fantasy and about the way that you and other people like yourself write is that you make up these words. I do the same thing in my fantasy speculative fiction that I like to write, and I really enjoy digging deep, uh, figuring out the names and the meanings of the names. Do you enjoy doing that as well?
Definitely, yeah. It's I always love just one of my favorite things is, oh, so that's the word they're using for that. Like I was when I was reading Leigh Bardugo's Six of Crows series, and I just saw the words she chose to describe the different like foods in the world. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. Using like the Russian um root words and then making your own fantasy word out of that. That's really interesting.
Sure is. Yeah. And English is not my first language, so I had to learn it. When I was 5 years old, I was thrown into kindergarten or grade one, I forget now, whatever. But yeah, it was a bit intimidating. So I took it upon myself to carry a dictionary around with me for many years just to look at words. And then that just it ended up looking on maps of Canada and the funny names for towns and lakes. And so words fascinate me. And are you the same way?
Definitely, yeah. I words. I mean, it's my favorite medium of art.
What about your characters? What are they called?
The characters in book one follows the adventures of Amaru, who is the daughter of the primary sun goddess Yamaria, and Emily Redwin, who is the princess of Sunreach, as they face the calls of destiny. Amaru is actually she is a Phyroxy, which are desert dwelling fox shifter people, and their people are on the verge of extinction, and their ancient enemies, the Chilfang, suddenly show back up after 100 years away when they're at their weakest. So the Phyroxes they're in a horrible spot and they're just trying to survive, trying to fight. And Amaru is their main salvation.
Wonderful. So what do you do? Do you create tension and conflict and worry about naming people and places and things later?
Actually, the way that my writing style works, I kind of see myself more as a scribe. I see the worlds and the characters interacting, and then I just write down what happens. I almost feel it's kind of like I'm watching a movie play out in my head.
Mhm.
I feel like I'll just be going around doing some other work and just like in my head, several different characters having a conversation, and I take what I remember from that, and that becomes a scene.
Yeah. Wow. Sounds very familiar. Very good. And how long have you been actively working on these stories?
I've been working on the Astral Kingdoms since my first year of college, so about 3 or 4 years. Book one actually started just after making that board game project. Those characters stuck with me, and during my first year of college, I just decided to sit down and started listening to those characters talk. And I would go to the computer lab every day between every class, after every class, stay for a couple hours after, and actually got the first draft of Everything Under the Sun done in a month.
What was your next step after that? You're all excited. You've written this book. You've got your draft. I suppose you went through a few edit passes yourself. How did you go about getting it to print?
That actually was my father who suggested getting it out and published, and we worked with a small vanity publisher out of South Carolina, and they took a look at it, said, "Hey, this looks pretty cool," and decided to put it up for publishing.
So that's book one. Just I didn't notice how long is book one?
Book one is about 350 pages. It's a full novel,
Absolutely.
and uh, book two is around the same length. Actually, I think it's a little bit longer, and it takes place just a couple months after the end of book one, and
Yep.
follows some similar characters and some new characters.
Hmm.
Follows Amaru and Alaric, one of Amaru's traveling companions, a bit of a womanizer bard who falls madly in love with Amaru and decides to follow her and devote his talents to her specifically.
Okay. So there's some love interests going on in there.
A little bit of a lot of slow burn romance.
That's good. That's good. I take it there's some warring factions, some violence. To what degree do you take that?
I focus more on like the overarching story of it. I'm not very big on writing combat scenes, so while they're in there, they're not the main focus of the story. It's definitely more focused on the characters, the interactions between the characters who are in the fight scenes. And even when I'm fighting, while I am describing the actions, I feel like I focus more on the emotions of the character who the POV character during the fight.
Hmm. Hmm. So would you say that these books are okay for, say, adolescents to read?
Definitely, yeah. There's not I kind of I like to think of it sort of as a George R. R. Martin light, because I use his framing style where you like jump between different POV characters,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't like there's no explicit like sexual mentions. There is some gore, but it less than you see in common video games.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Now, stories like this, and I'm familiar with it because I say I dabble in it as well. Do you take time to explain the history of things to so the reader is not just plunged into this foreign world, but perhaps you give a little bit of backstory to how things got to be the way they are?
Yeah, I like to do that. I call my world building style a conversational world building, where it's built out through conversations between the characters and the thoughts the characters have. I'm constantly building the world through what the characters experience instead of just having like long exposition dumps.
Fascinating. Do you mind me asking you what you took in college?
I was originally going for environmental science, though I've recently pivoted towards more creative endeavors.
Okay. So you have a series in mind. How many books?
It's going to be 3 books. Book two is available for pre-order now and will be officially released on the 23rd of January. And
Okay.
I'm currently about 15,000 words through book three. and that's going to be the end of the Sun's Reach story.
Okay.
I will eventually be going on to a story set in Moonwatch, probably set a few months after the end of the Sun's Reach story, and later on there'll be a story set in the Eclipse, the Third Kingdom.
Okay. All right. We're recording this in December, just before Christmas 2023. So you're talking about the second book being released sometime in January 2024. And when do you think the third book of the trilogy will be done by?
I'm aiming to have that ready by the end of 2024.
Okay. Yeah. And then you have ideas for another series of books, I take it?
Yes, I do have. I actually, because of the way that, because of my scribe mentality, where I'm constantly just writing down what I see, I have several different story ideas lined up. I'm just waiting for the scenes to come from each one. I
Yeah.
think after Sun's Reach, I'm planning on moving on to a series I've been working on for a long time, the Eleunaria Quest series, which uh, started in middle school. Is actually one of the first serious projects I started working on, though it's been through 6 different revisions at this point, each over 200 pages long. So I keep refining the story, making it better, changing the characters, the interactions, the journey,
Yeah.
and I can't wait to see where they take me next.
Wow. Well, neither can I. You're gonna have to come back next year and tell us more about that as it's developing. You say you've decided to go into the creative branch in your career. Well, you can look behind me, and that's exactly what I did. It wasn't an easy go, but there's ways of doing it. Besides writing the books, in addition to, I should say, writing your books, do you have a sort of a plan, a 5 or 10 year plan on how you want to see yourself uh, become a person who can make a living on this?
I'm at the moment just kind of going with the flow. I'm still at the beginning of my author journey, and I'm excited to see where it takes me.
Okay. What does your vanity publisher, publicist, or agent who's working with you think about your work now?
I'm currently working. I'm actually doing self-publishing now. I no longer work with the vanity publisher. We moved on to self-publishing.
Okay.
I did briefly work with another publisher with book two, and they seemed to quite enjoy it. They were excited to see where it goes.
Who does your graphics design? I mean, the cover of the books are really cool.
We work with a company overseas called Get Covers. They have really good rates for quite stunning covers.
Wow, I learn something new all the time in this show. Get Covers. That's the name of the company.
Yep.
I'll have to look into that. Really cool. And what about editing? How is that taken care of?
I start with I actually do most of my writing in Grammarly itself, the Grammarly program, which starts as a good overview for basic edits. Then I take it through and I read it through, do 2 or 3 editing runs to catch what Grammarly doesn't, and then I give it to my parents, who give it another read through, make sure it makes sense from an outside reader's perspective.
Hmm.
And then after that, we work with a professional editor to get it straightened out and cleaned up.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. You seem to know what you're doing. Now, with the first book, how long has that been out for?
Since 2020.
Oh, okay. So for a while, I could ask you then, what are sales like for that?
We're still trying to really build our audience out. We've had a few sales and quite a few 5-star reviews, and we'll just keep on pushing forward.
Okay. All right. Do you have a website?
I do. I have my link tree, which I will uh, have available for you in the description for the YouTube.
Okay.
It'll have link to my book pages, to my all my social medias, and also my Readsy blog, where I occasionally post short stories.
Okay. Super. Well, you're well on your way. Would you like to have any final word on your books and your direction, and to get people really interested in wanting to buy these books and get into your headspace?
Yeah, the way I like to beyond the whole scribe part, I really like to I spend a lot of time in each of my characters' heads. They're constantly talking to me, and I'm learning about them every single day. So I I wouldn't say I have a favorite character. That would be kind of like asking a parent to choose a favorite child, but I'm their journeys are always unfolding, and you'll just have to see where they end up.
Well, Spencer, you're going to have to come back, like I said, when you write some more, because we need to continue this conversation. So you make sure that you contact me.
I will.
All right. It's been a pleasure speaking with you.
And a pleasure.
You take care now.
Have a good one.
Thank you for watching. And before you go, if you like what I do here on Tell Me About Your Book, then consider subscribing, hitting that like button, and don't forget to ring that bell for future notifications. You can even leave a comment. All of that really helps in recommending this channel to a larger audience. And if you are an author, I would love to speak with you about your book. Until next time, keep on writing and be kind to one another.